Hello Vector Tots, my name is Maciej Lenartowicz and today I'm gonna take you step by step through the process of creating this graphics. As you can see, we have a flaming ball here that is hit by a light from the top and is lit by this big flame, big gout of flame coming from underneath it. So we're gonna use blends, we're gonna use blending modes, we're gonna use gradients, mask, and so on to create this great effect. Let's get started. I'm inside Illustrator and I'm gonna start off by creating a new file. So let me choose File, New, and here I'll name it Flaming Ball, and I'll set my dimensions to 800 pixels for each dimension. We're gonna leave raster effects at 300 ppi, and after that's done I'm gonna click OK. So here's my file, here's my workspace. Now I'm gonna modify it a little. So I'm gonna press Ctrl R to enable my rulers. I'll drag out two guides. As you can see, I can't select them, so I'm gonna press Ctrl Alt semicolon to unlock my guides. I'll select them and I'll center them inside my artboard. I'm gonna press Ctrl Alt semicolon again to lock them back, and I will change this layer's name to guides. Let me create a new layer, name it BG for background, and here I'll grab the rectangle tool and draw a rectangle matching the dimensions of my artboard. I'll fill it with a gradient, and the colors I'm going for will be black, and the second one, let me change my sliders to HSV sliders, will be about this shade of gray. Okay, I'm gonna change this gradient to radial, grab the gradient tool, that's G, and I'll move it up slightly. Okay, the idea here is to have a lighter top and a darker bottom, and this will enhance the lighting effects later. Okay, so that's the background. I'm gonna create a new layer and name it ball. In here, I'm gonna grab my ellipse tool and draw an ellipse. Actually, let me delete that. I'll just click and input some specific numbers. Let's say about 330 pixels for each dimension. That looks about okay. So I'm gonna position it right here, and the gradient from the background looks about okay on this ball, so I'm gonna leave it at that. So there's the ball. Now let's bring it out from the background. I'm gonna select it, go to Effects menu, choose Stylize, and Outer Glow. And here I'm gonna enter some specific values. First of all, let's keep the blending mode at screen. Let's change the color. I'm gonna go for very bright orange color. I'm gonna hit OK. I'll bring the opacity down to about 50%. Let's preview that. Let's maybe crank that up to 10 pixels. Yeah, that looks definitely okay. So I'm gonna hit OK. And that's the glow on my ball. So here's the ball sitting in the background. Now let's work on adding some flames. And the way I'm going to approach this task is to create a number of objects that, given a specific blending mode and stacked on one on top of another, will hopefully give us something that resembles a flame. So let's get to it. First of all, I'm going to create a new layer and name it Flames. Now I'm going to grab my rectangle tool. I'm going to create a rectangle. Now I'm gonna enable my guides. I'm gonna reflect this rectangle to the other side of the artboard. With these two shapes selected, I'm gonna press Ctrl Alt B to blend them together. Now I'm gonna find my blend tool and double click it. Here I can change a couple of details. First of all, I'll increase number of steps to about 20. Let's make it 19. I'm gonna hit OK. Now I want to create a blend that resembles an arc. So I'm gonna grab Ellipse Tool and I'll create an ellipse about here. I'll drag it down, and using the white arrow tool, I'm going to delete this top anchor point. I'll have my ellipse here. I'm gonna shift click my blend. I'm gonna click Object, go to Blend, and choose Replace Spine. I'll scale it down, and this looks about okay. Now I'm going to go to Object and choose Expand. Okay, this gives me a group, so I'm going to press Ctrl Shift G to get a number of objects. Okay, now let's add some styling. I'm going to select all these shapes and change their fill to a gradient. Now let me go with a very bright orange color. And this orange will blend to another lighter color. Let's maybe add 15. Okay, this looks great. Last thing is to change the opacity of this swatch to 0. Most times when I'm working in Illustrator and I try to get some kind of a fire effect, there's a number of blending modes I will go for right off the bat. In this case, most times I would choose overlay. However, as you can see, in this instance it doesn't work so much for me. So my next choice will be screen, and this looks definitely better. So while I have my shape selected, I'm going to press Ctrl G to group them together. And now I'll drag out a copy just to make my flames brighter where they are closer to the ball. Let me adjust them, move them down, scale them up. Okay, this looks about okay the way it is right now. Okay, so I'll select these two groups together and press Ctrl G to group them. This fire is starting to look pretty much okay, but right now the ball is shooting vertically up, and I like to make it look like it's heading towards us. So I'm gonna select this big group. I'm gonna go to Effect, Warp, and choose Arc. And here I'm gonna check the preview box. I'm gonna start playing with the settings. Until I distort this flame shape so that it looks like the ball is heading towards us. I can always nudge those values from my keyboard. And I'll sell about at 4% band and minus 46% vertical distortion. Now I'm going to grab the scale tool and I'll start playing with those shapes. I'm trying to hide all those wayward edges. Maybe I'll nudge it up. It's definitely too tall, so let me reduce it like this. And this looks pretty much, this looks great. So there is the ball rushing towards us. There's just one more final touch I'd like to add to the flames, and this is some glow around the whole flame. So I'm gonna grab the Ellipse Tool, and I'll draw out a big ellipse. Now, I'm gonna use the same gradient, but let me change it to radial and swap the swatches. Okay, now I'm gonna reveal my edges. I'm going to grab this anchor point and position it about here. Now I'll grab the scale tool and I'll scale my ellipse over about this area. It's great. I'm gonna select it. I'm gonna change the blending mode to hard light. I'm going to hit S and scale it one more, but this time I'll create a copy. And there's a nice gentle glow around my flame. Okay, I'll see you in a moment and we will work on getting the lighting. Hey, welcome back after this short intermission. In the last video, we started working on this big flaming ball. We've created the sphere, we've added some glow, and we created this fire coming from underneath the ball. Now let's add some lighting, since the lights in this image are quite inconsistent. First of all, this big glowing fire underneath, that's gonna be an obvious light source. So let's add it right now. I'm gonna hit this button to create a new layer. I'm gonna call it glow. And let me change this color to something else, like dark blue will work fine. Now, I'm going to grab the Ellipse Tool. I'll create an ellipse here. Let me give it some other color. Now I'm going to scale it like so, and I'll start changing the shape of this object to make it a sort of a concave shape. Place it about here. Well, it doesn't have to be perfect, since it's gonna be masked off later. Okay, so once you have a shape, it looks something like this. Actually make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so now I'm going to change its color, and let's go with something orange, something more orange. Yeah, need something less saturated, something about 70 something, and very bright. So there's the color. Now I need a shape to mask it off with. So I'm gonna grab this shape. I'll drag my ball with Alt to this layer. I don't need all those appearance references, so I'm gonna hit D. Or if it doesn't work, I can also remove all appearance. Now I'm going to click this shape and shift click the orange one. I'm going to press Ctrl 7 to create a mask. Now I'm going to blur the shape inside to create some kind of a blurry effect on the bottom of our sphere. So let me select this shape, and now we're selecting the mask. So I'm gonna change to my contents using this widget up here. Now I'm going to go to the Effect menu, choose Blur and Gaussian Blur. Here you can experiment with the values, but I'm gonna go with something bigger, definitely bigger, something about 100 pixels. Let me go with 80 pixels. I'll click OK. I'll see what it looks like. Well, that's kind of strong, so I'm going to select this shape and choose Screen Blending Mode to see how it behaves right now. Well, obviously you have to add the contents inside and change their blending mode in here. Let me reduce the opacity to 50%. And this looks about okay. Well, if this blur is too strong for you, you can also reduce the size or bring down the whole shape. And that's what I'm going to do. So now the ball is getting its own dimension. We are getting some fire from underneath that is lighting the bottom of the sphere. Okay, so the glow coming from the bottom is taken care of. Now let's add a highlight. So I'm going to create a new layer. Let's name it Highlight. Here I will use yet another ellipse to create a highlight coming from the top of the ball. So let me draw a perfect circle about here. Let me change its color. And I'll try to adjust its shape. Something along these lines. Now I'm going to select my white arrow tool and I'm going to lift this anchor point about here. Let me scale this highlight like so. Let me make it a little bit more narrow, and this looks about okay. Now let's fill it with a gradient. So this is going to be a very simple radial gradient ranging from white to another swatch, which is also white, but is 0% opacity. Now I'm going to grab the gradient tool and I'm going to look for this perfect sweet spot. Of course, I'm going to swap colors and I'll start adjusting this gradient. You can see it's going to have to be a little bit bigger. And now it's just a matter of dragging. I'm looking for a good combination. Press Ctrl H to hide my edges. And it's starting to look quite okay. Yeah. Yep, that's about it. This looks great. Alright, we're getting almost ready here. There's only one minor tweak I'd like to add, namely, I'd like to adjust the colors here. As you can see, the bottom of this graphic is very hot. The top is kind of cool, so we can try to equalize that and introduce a little bit more consistent color. So I'm going to create a new layer. I'll name it Global Glow. Here I'll grab the Ellipse Tool and I'll draw an ellipse. For the time being, let me fill it. Actually, let me give it no fill and just a slight stroke. And I'll try to reposition it about here. Now I'm going to copy the appearance of one of those shapes down here. If you can see those blue outlines, I'm just going to grab my eyedropper tool and click to copy the appearance. Okay, I'll grab the gradient tool and I'll make sure that I don't get those sharp edges. I'm going to scale it about this. I'll change the blending mode to soft light. And as you can see, this introduced some warmth into the middle of the sphere. If you turn it off, it looks like this. If you turn it on, it adds some hotter colors to the whole design. So that's a matter of preference, whether you like it more with this additional glow layer or not. Alright, our flaming ball is ready, but just as an icing on the cake, I'm going to show you how to add a pattern or an object on it just to make it look a little bit more interesting. So let me hit the glow layer and I'll create a new one. I'm going to call it star, and I'll grab the star tool and I will create a little star about here. Let me fill it with black and I'll go to Effect, Warp, and Inflate. I'm going to hit Preview and bump up this value a couple of pixels. I'm going to go Object and choose Expand Appearance. And now my star is editable. So the effect I'm going for is kind of an inset, a star pressed into the surface of the ball. So while this surface is going to be slightly higher than the inside of the star. So let me show you how to get such an effect. I'm going to grab this shape and drag out a copy. Now I'm going to grab the white arrow tool. I'll mark over these 3 points. I'll hit delete to get rid of them. I'll change the fill with the stroke. I'll make the stroke white with 1 point. I'll change the profile from uniform to this shape. Now I'm going to hit align to center, and now we have an illusion that the light is hitting this edge of the star. Okay, this concludes the tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned a lot of useful things from it. Thanks for watching, stay tuned, and bye bye.